Energy Radio, a podcast from CEM Engineering.
Welcome to Energy Radio. We're doing live on location at the Canadian Biogas Association Value of Biogas East, and really happy to be joined by John Van Lochtenstein of DLS Biogas. John, thanks for doing this. We've never done this before at a show, so you're my first, put it that way. So,
wow, honored.
Welcome. So, kind of just tell us first about you and kind of your story, and then kind of the broader maybe Dairy Lane story and DLS, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So, name's John Van Lochtenstein. With my brother and sister, we own Dairy Lane Systems. We also own a few other companies, including DLS Biogas. That's the most relevant one here. And we've been involved in the agricultural space since 1990.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
My parents were doing it before us.
I think I've met your dad once. Yeah. Okay.
My parents were doing it before us. We took it over in 2010.
Okay.
And kind of have focused and grown into different areas from that time. One of them has been the biogas side.
Yeah.
So we've kind of separated out as a separate company at that point, and really kind of at that point the feed-in tariff program was coming out, or it had come out, and it was kind of an opportunity for us to build biogas plants on farm clients.
Right. Yeah. And this is not kind of part of the discussion, but do you guys kind of as siblings, do you divide the business, or how do you navigate that dimension of, because I'm in a family business, but I don't have, it's uncle, nephew, don't have any siblings, so
right.
I'm always fascinated by it.
So we've grown quite a bit over the years, so
awesome.
From 2010 till now.
Yeah.
And I would say it's gotten easier as we've gotten bigger.
Oh, good. Okay.
So not that it was ever really a challenge, but you kind of were working in the same areas, the same spaces, and you'd get into the situation where, say, my brother makes a decision, and then somebody came and asked me the same thing, and I had a different decision.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, who's
right?
Who's right?
Yeah.
You can get to the point that feelings can get hurt,
right.
but you got to look past that. But as we've gotten bigger, that's kind of gone to the wayside because we just have too much to too much to do that we don't have the opportunity to get on each other's toes. And like I've kind of over the last, say, 5 years, I've been really focusing on the biogas side more.
Okay. Yeah.
But we're still very active together in all aspects of the business.
Because they're really, what I've observed from the outside looking in, really integrate extremely well, right?
For sure. And I didn't do the best job of explaining that, but our dairy equipment business, that's our main business still. And so we're doing milking equipment, manure equipment, basically any kind of mechanical equipment on farm.
Right.
And that's what really kind of gave us that in on the biogas side.
Yeah.
Because it was a natural fit. We were already dealing with all that manure movement, everything like that, the pumps. So really doing the biogas was a natural extension for us.
Now, did you, I remember kind of watching that, like how did you got connected to some European providers? Like how did that transition of going from a milk supply company to biogas EPC technology provider, like walk us through that first?
Yeah, so our history or our start in the space was due to we had a customer and we were pitching them or pricing them a completely new greenfield dairy barn site.
Okay.
And as part of that, they wanted to do biogas.
Okay.
They wanted to do right by the community. It was in their long-term vision. And that's how we actually got our foothold in the biogas space. So it was kind of our customer that, wanted to do it. Then we started investigating things. This was back in, I would say 2005, something like that. So,
wow.
quite a while ago.
Yeah.
I was doing the research. I was quite a bit younger at that point, but I was doing the research for my dad.
Okay.
And it was all theoretical articles on the internet.
Yeah.
There was no industry, no industry in Europe.
No.
Yeah. And so actually, like what we ended up doing was they ended up buying a system from a university. It was like more like a theoretical type system.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say theoretical. They had practical applications of it, but like it was something that was developed in the university environment, right? And that got put in place. It worked okay, not the best.
Yeah.
And lessons learned all around there. But then in the meantime, the feed-in tariff program started coming out, started getting more interest. we realized, hey, we got to do something a little bit differently. Started aligning with some German companies because that's where the industry was developing really rapidly.
Yeah,
And that's how we kind of started to, really do a lot of trips over there, investigate what they're doing, start to bring a lot of those technologies back. We never lined up with, one particular company.
Right.
It was more like, okay, we lined up with some really intelligent people in the space.
Yeah.
And they kind of recommended and guided us to, different companies that that provided particular components.
Yep.
And then over the years, we've kind of honed that offering and, North Americanized it, I would say.
Right. Okay.
And now we do a lot more of the, really, if we look at a facility, we're probably, it's the membranes, it's the flares, a few other components. Everything else is either made by us or brought it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Wow. And so you're on the DLS biogas side, you're kind of providing the whole facility, equipment, design, construction. Is that right? That's kind of
everything.
the goal.
So,
yeah.
Especially, and we found that was a huge requirement with a renewable natural gas. So when it was electricity generation, the sites were smaller.
Right.
It was easier to kind of piece it out, and the farms took on a bigger portion of the project. We did our biogas portion. The contracting was simpler. We quickly realized that if we want to do that same approach, or that same approach would not work with the renewable natural gas side, we had to take a very, very hands-on approach. The development process is a lot longer.
Yeah.
That's what we've noticed. It can be anywhere from 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. And the farms are busy with their other things. They don't have the time or the energy to spend and dedicate to these projects. So it's a lot more front end work that we're doing. So we're doing the design, contracting. We're helping with the financing, negotiations with banks.
Right.
Sometimes partnering with facilities if that's what makes sense. And then doing the full construction, commissioning. A lot of time the after sales operations, and then all the service work and everything like that. A lot of break fix work.
Yeah, awesome. And we've tried to streamline the podcast for to have discussions about successful projects with the owner of the project. And so for those who are listening, you do fit that bill as well. Even though because as you've grown and developed, you've gone not only from solutions provider to you're also now taking a role in some projects, right?
That's
Is that right?
That's right.
How do you kind of make that decision as far as when to do that?
So it definitely is something that we're always interested, but it has to be the right project. We have to be have the right fit with the partners. And that's really it comes down to the right fit, and we both have to want that same thing, right? We can't force a partnership on anyone.
Right.
It just doesn't work. The farms, if they want us as a partner, it's usually the best way.
Yeah.
We've kind of transitioned into that role as well, but it's not it's not a hard and fast requirement by any means. We still build plants for other people. The majority, I would still say, 70 to 80% are, we're building for somebody else. And it's the other ones where we have, a potential opportunity. But the first time we actually got in was back in 2013, 2014.
Okay.
And it kind of, I don't want to say by accident, it was on purpose, but the farms were kind of in either a succession planning, or they had just undertaken some large capital projects. And it was also around that time when a previous player in the space went bankrupt. Yeah. And they just had a little bit of uncertainty in the market, and people were a little bit on edge as to whether they wanted to do biogas. So we said, okay, we want to build you your plant. We believe in our technology. We believe in the program. Let us build it. We'll set a bio structure that you can buy us out.
Okay, cool.
And they had the opportunity, and they still do. They can.
Okay.
They haven't yet, so that's kind of, we got our feet wet in the space
with
running and owning facilities.
Yeah.
And then the last one that we did, which we started up in 2003 or 2023 here, going into 2024, I guess, on the startup side, that one was very intentional.
Okay,
To be
okay.
a partnership.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, we approached it that way from the get-go.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the one we really want to talk about now. And maybe before we ask you to kind of walk us through the project, talk to us about kind of what was the starting point. Where did the idea come from? Like, walk us through kind of that development cycle. As painful as it might be sometimes for you to relive that, but if you will, kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, and some of those things I've blocked out of
Right.
my blocked out of my memory. But so we made a. If I go back to the RNG side, we made like a very conscious effort or a conscious decision. Like, if we want to stay in the biogas space, we have to be in the RNG
Right,
space.
okay.
Right. That was kind of, we were very focused on the electricity generating side before that.
Right.
So it just made sense for us to go. So I talked to some of our employees, and yep, no, that makes sense. So
Okay.
we had worked on a RNG project. So we started thinking, okay, what what's the next one?
Right.
And you know, we kind of looked and we said, okay, we have extremely good relationships with our customer that we built this facility at. We've been working with them for 30 plus years on the dairy space, and even the company that my parents took over their business from was working with them before that. So there's an even longer history.
Wow.
You know, like-minded, and you know, one of the largest dairy farm in Ontario.
I didn't know that. Wow.
So it was kind of like, okay, this is an ideal candidate. So we went, actually it was my brother, I believe, that went and just approached them and said, hey, is this interesting?
Yeah.
And we had talked to them previously about biogas, and it wasn't really the right fit. But, you know, this time it started to feel right for both parties.
Yeah.
And so we just started going through that development process with them.
Yeah.
So I kind of think my brother initially talked to them on it, and then I kind of took it from there.
Okay.
And we started to try to figure out how to do this. And there was no playbook, right? Like this is all like figuring it out from the ground up.
Is it so it's maybe we'll pause there and let you kind of introduce we've kind of talked around it, but introduce the project and describe it, and then we'll kind of go through maybe some of those other development steps. So walk us through the project first.
Sure. So the project's located in Aylmer, Ontario. It's on the Walker Dairy Farm. So it's, you know, roughly 1,800 milking cows on that particular farm. Really, really unique site because they actually do like on-site milk processing as well.
Okay.
So you know, they really got the full circle there. Really good story. So the project is we're basically taking all the manure from that farm. They have several other farms that we're not taking the manure from.
Yep.
We're taking manure from that on-site farm, pumping it into the digester, and we're doing a co-digestion with off-farm food waste. Okay. So we were the first site that was regulated under the new nutrient management rules in Ontario.
Okay.
So we're a 40,000 ton site at that 40,000 tons of off-farm material that we can take into it.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we're producing renewable natural gas. So we produce biogas, we upgrade it to renewable natural gas. We have a direct pipeline injection, so we're injecting it into the Ep.17 franchise area. So it's a small utility within the kind of encircled by the Enbridge utility.
Right.
That comes with, you know, its own hosts of challenges. They've been really good to work with, but you're kind of in an islanded utility. We're selling the gas that we produce there to Fortis in BC. Okay. Under a long-term 20-year contract. And I think that.
And it was kind of built in late 22, 23, kind of commission late 23, 24. Is that kind of the time?
Yeah, I would say 23, 24 is kind of commission.
Okay. Yeah. And it's up and running now.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. So what are some of the key kind of steps in development? You mentioned, I think, contracting, there's a permitting piece. It is it's not Ontario's first RNG, but there was one in Woodward, wastewater treatment plant that's been there for a while, but it was one of the first, and the first dairy RNG?
No, it was the second one. So we were involved on the first one as well.
Okay. I didn't know which one went first. Yeah.
We built the first one as well, not the upgrading side of it, but we did the biogas side of it. Okay. And again, another long-term customer. We're not a partner in that facility. That was a pure sale transaction.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's but it's one of the first, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
it was the first one in the Epcor franchise area,
Okay.
right? So
Right.
there's that side of it as well
Yeah.
that you're really, I don't want to say the educating is not the wrong word because we were all educating ourselves throughout the process, but
Right.
like
Right.
we're all getting people comfortable with RNG and the
Right.
idea of us producing gas within their system,
Right. Right.
right? That was
And
definitely
was that a more difficult or nuanced conversation because of the fact that they're a smaller utility, not really on an island, but kind of like was that from an offtake perspective and a flow like that played into the project a bit, right?
for sure. So I would say like the biggest impact was on the flow side,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Since they are this kind of, in essence, the gas only goes into that utility,
Right.
right? It
Right.
doesn't come out of the utility. So everything that we produce and other producers that are in that area, it has to be consumed within that network.
Right.
So no issue in the winter.
Right. Right. Of
In the
course. Yeah.
summer,
Yeah. Right.
becomes a bit of an issue. So we knew that going in,
Okay.
right? But the project still had a lot of merits behind it that it made sense to
Yeah.
build it still.
Okay.
Now, like from working with a smaller utility is really good. Like we still have weekly touch point meetings
Oh,
with
really?
them.
Okay.
Good relationships.
Yeah.
There's usually 5 or 6 of them on these calls.
Wow.
Gas supply, engineering side. Just want to know like how did things go that
Right,
week. I'm sure
right.
they'll kind of start to drop off as we,
Yeah.
get more and more used to it. But they're very involved,
Yeah.
and they're very approachable too.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, like that was a really nice thing is that you can call them on the phone, they
Right.
pick up, they're there,
That's
and
huge.
they've been really good to work with.
And so then on the offtake side, you mentioned Fortis BC. Was that a difficult process? How did that go?
It wasn't a difficult process. I shouldn't say that. Fortis was really good to work with. They have really good people
Okay.
to work with. I think part of it is it's a new area for all of us,
Yeah,
right? When
yeah,
we were doing
yeah.
this, it was the first time we had seen a RNG offtake contract.
Yeah.
There's a lot of terms that are different than what you're used to in the electricity space.
Right.
They have gas EDIs, and it's like, what the heck is this? And and they have delivery points of the gas, and it's like, okay, like how do the mechanics of this transaction
right.
actually work? Like now, looking back, I understand it very well, but
Yeah.
at that point, it's like,
So since you understand it very well, let's put you on the spot then. So you're making biogas, you're upgrading it in Aylmer. You mentioned Fortis BC for our American listeners. That's the other side of Canada, like a long way. Like how does that mechanics work from Aylmer, Ontario to somewhere in British Columbia?
right. So essentially what's doing, like the molecule is not moving, right?
Right.
The molecule is being consumed within the Aylmer franchise area. So we have a gas agreement with Epcor.
Okay.
So they are purchasing our, brown gas essentially. And we are using that money. It's the same thing as what you essentially do with Enbridge, but we're using that money and we're buying gas in Alberta.
Oh.
So our trading hub with Fortis is NIT or ACO.
Okay.
Right. So we're buying gas in Alberta, and then we
Okay.
have a handshake agreement with Fortis. So
Yeah.
like we basically transfer the gas that we bought in Alberta
Okay.
to Fortis.
Okay.
And from there
Okay.
they move it into their network. And
Now-
there they're actually transporting the physical
Right. Okay.
commodity because it goes from that. That's their basin or where they.
And
pull
does
from.
that apply to, we often talk about kind of the molecule and the attributes separately. How does that get sorted out?
Right. So the attributes we attach to the gas that we sell to
Oh, you
Fortis.
do? Okay,
Yes.
okay,
So that
okay.
it is a bundled transaction.
Got it.
So we
okay.
are selling them the attributes with the gas.
Okay.
So the gas that Epcor is buying, it's just displacing other system gas that would be
Right,
produced
okay.
within their network. So there's a
Right.
bunch of gas wells within that Aylmer area.
Yeah.
There's also an offshore producer that's pulling gas from Lake Erie
Okay,
and pumping
okay.
it into the Epcor area.
Yeah.
So
okay.
we're and obviously Enbridge has
Right.
6, 7 different connection points
Yes.
into the system. So
Right.
when we produce gas, they typically just use less gas from somebody else.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So Epcor is buying from you the molecules. You're taking that molecule money and buying different molecules in Alberta. But then the attributes don't have to go through that process. You're
No.
selling the attributes directly. Is that right?
Well, the attributes, we just attach it to the gas that we're selling
Got
to.
it. The molecules you're buying in Alberta, you attach to that the
I mean,
attributes.
it's not like we're actually physically doing anything, but it's like we're attesting that we're giving all the
Yeah,
attributes
I got it.
along
Okay,
with the
okay,
gas.
okay.
There's no like physical transaction that's occurring. It's more
Yeah.
a paper
Yeah.
transaction that, yes, the attributes associated with the gas we
Got it.
produced and that we are selling to Fortis is going to them.
And is the whole volume is contracted for a certain period, or is some of the gas? Are I know some people kind of keep some in reserve to sell it. You've contracted the whole project.
So yes and no.
Okay.
Always an answer like that.
Right. Yeah.
When we went into this project on the onset, we contracted with what we expected to be the maximum output of the facility. We decided throughout the construction that we would make the facility a bit bigger. We also thought that we would, make the facility a bit bigger. The upgrader, we ended up upgrading to a dual compressor unit.
Okay.
Okay, instead of a single compressor unit for various reasons, but we liked that idea. And when we did that, we actually got a little bit of a boost in capacity. So right now we have excess capacity versus what we've contracted for.
Got it. Okay.
So we do have some.
Okay.
spare.
Yeah. And can you? I should know this, but can you kind of accrue those attributes and sell them? 2 or 3 years from now, even.
You could, for sure.
Great.
Like it depends on, like if you're in Enbridge's franchise area, you're transferring the gas to Dawn, right? That's their trading hub.
Yes.
And they have a requirement, and I don't know exactly like what it is, but they have a requirement that you have to clear out your account, right? So you have a limit as to how long you can actually do that for.
Yeah.
But if you didn't have that limit, you could technically accrue that for ever.
Okay.
Right?
Got it.
Because the transaction of selling the gas, like our transaction of selling the gas locally, is independent of the Fortis transaction.
Right.
They're two different things.
Got it. Yep.
When you're with Enbridge, it's slightly different because they're not buying the gas from you. You're actually paying them a service to get it to Dawn.
Yes.
And then you're selling it to somebody else at Dawn.
Yeah.
Right. It's a slightly different.
Yep.
But beyond that, like you sell it at Dawn, you use the money you got at Dawn, and you buy gas in Alberta.
Yeah.
It's the same mechanics, other than that first little component of it.
Thank you for walking us through, because that's probably the clearest I've ever heard that explanation. So that's great. Were there, kind of stepping back, were there any kind of big surprises as you guys did the project that kind of, we didn't either pleasant or negative surprises?
Well, I mean, the biggest pleasant one was having the excess capacity.
Right. Yes,
that was definitely the best one. In terms of negatives, trying to think now. I try to block those things out of my mind, but
or were there things where if you could go back in time and do it over again, you'd do differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sure there are.
There are. Yeah, you've suppressed them.
I've suppressed them. Like, I think we did some things right, in the sense that, we made the facility big.
Right.
We have lots of buffer capacity there. Lots of buffer capacity. Like, I was at a thing last week in Quebec, and I was giving kind of lessons learned. So maybe that's. But like, I think, we entered into this before knowing maybe all the things or risks in the market and everything like that. I'm not saying we wouldn't do it if we knew everything, but like, as the market's developed, we've learned a lot more too. Back then, you talked about carbon intensity, but it was not as much of a driver in these discussions as it is now. So just really understanding like the contracts you're entering into and everything, that's huge, right? Like, we had a few things with, even on our Fortis contract, that we've since changed, but could have been not the best situation if we stayed. Right. So
yeah. And the partnership, with the farm. I mean, how did that work itself out during construction and commissioning and now operation? And what does that look like?
Yeah, they've actually been like a fantastic partner to work with. And part of it is they've taken a pretty like hands-off approach. Right. So they are informed. They want to know about every important decision and everything like that. But in terms of, the technical side
Yeah.
and building the facility, it was kind of a little bit of a hands-off approach,
Okay.
which is nice.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Yeah.
then we can build it,
Yeah.
build it as we would
Right.
want it built.
Yep.
So that was really, really good. And even from an operations, like we are running the facility
Okay,
from
okay.
from an operating point of view.
Yeah.
They're helping a lot with like the feedstock side of things.
Yep. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
we're playing into our own strengths, really.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah,
They
yeah,
they
cool.
are they, you know, they know. Okay, you guys know how to build the facilities. You guys know how to operate the facilities. So do that. We're not going to try to do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
The same
Yeah.
thing on the feedstock side. Like they know how to deal with huge volumes of manure and other kind of things.
Yeah.
So that it's not our specialty.
Right, totally,
right?
totally,
So
yeah.
that's been nice. Like
Yeah.
complementary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's cool. And then is it too early to tell from a kind of performance perspective in terms of, I mean, uptime, it might be too early to tell, but in terms of getting the gas that you thought you were going to get, or how's that going?
Yeah, it's been going well. Like it's we've definitely been up and down a little bit. Never like not in a bad way.
Right, right.
But we've had really, really good weeks.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Where you have good feedstock stream coming in, and we're producing. The pipeline has lots of capacity, and we're producing lots of gas.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and we've had other weeks where it's kind of gone down a bit. So like, what I've learned, and maybe this is one of the lessons learned too, is that like when you're building these facilities, say you're building a 100,000 gigajoule facility, don't buy an upgrader that makes 100,000 gigajoules because,
okay.
I would say look at that as an average, right? Because you're
Okay,
going to have
gotcha.
those periods where,
Right.
You're going to produce 120,
Smart,
and you're going to produce
okay.
80,
Right,
right?
right,
And you want to
yeah.
get to 100,
Right,
but
right.
you got to be able to go up and down.
And you
with
have
this
some
thing.
storage capacity, but not enough to accommodate that, right?
No, so
Yeah.
we do build like large tanks, but
Yeah.
we have somewhere like maybe 8 hours of on-site storage.
Yeah, okay, got it.
We typically try to run our tanks at 30 to 40% gas bag,
Yeah.
and then so if we have a process upset or if the system turns off for whatever reason,
Yeah.
we're not losing the gas.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
we
yeah.
really try to avoid to do is flare the gas.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And we've had a few flaring incidents, but
Yeah.
not
you-
significant by any stretch.
You might as well light a pile of $100 bills on fire, right? That's
Yeah, at
what
least,
you're doing.
yeah.
At least, yeah, at least, yeah.
No, it is painful when you see it, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, let's go.
Right, right.
So it's nice having that buffer capacity
Yeah,
that
for sure.
and it's another thing too about the RNG space versus the electricity that's always been nice, or that has been nice because we have the other two electricity generating sites.
Right.
Like you can build up, or you can make back.
Right,
Gas
Right,
production,
right,
right? Because
right.
you can ramp up your upgrader,
Right,
and you can
right.
go over.
right,
There really is no limit other than what the pressure is in the
Right.
pipeline,
right.
right?
Which that was never a possibility with electricity.
No, if you lost
yeah.
if you lost the kilowatt, you
You
lost the
didn't get that
kilowatt.
back. Yeah, right, right.
So
yeah,
even if we're off for a little bit and we have that, as long as we're not flaring, we typically can make that back.
right, right.
We have some unique challenges at the site with some pipeline restriction and stuff
Yeah.
like that, but
Yeah.
in general, you can make it back.
Okay, cool. And what would you, as we kind of wrap up here, what would you say to somebody who's maybe early on in a project like this? What are some things you did advise them to think about or do, or who to talk to, or that kind of stuff?
Well, yeah, come talk to me.
There we go. Good.
No, I would say like the big things for me, like understand your feedstock, what you're going to be putting in.
Yeah.
Understand also though that the feedstock you think you're going to be putting in is not what you're going to actually be
Okay.
putting in,
Yeah.
right? So you need to design flexibility in the system because situations are going to change, new players are going to come in the market, you're going to lose access or gain access to different feedstocks. But going back to that feedstock recipe, hone that down to what you think it's going to be. Get somebody to help with CI modeling so you really understand what the value is in the gas.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
everything comes back to CI
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
more than when we were doing our contracting back
right.
then. So really hone in on what the CI is. Work with somebody that knows how to, work with the off-takers and
Right.
get you a good contract.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
And then once you get those kind of things lined in, the off-take contract, then start planning the design and
Right.
everything of the facility.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the most important thing is, know where you're going with the gas. That's
Yeah.
that's what's paying for the facility.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. Yep.
I've seen a lot of facilities where like you're doing all this design work ahead of time, but you don't actually know what your revenue stream is going to be.
Right.
And I actually like to look at the other way and say, okay, what's attainable here with the feedstock that we're going to put in?
Right.
You know, if we can only get $20 a gigajoule,
right,
then we have to either not build a facility
right.
or completely change how we would build a facility. Right?
Yeah.
But if we can get 35, 30, you know, it changes what you might do.
Yeah, it's a great point. Like we often see that in project development where people will put the cart before the horse and they'll get all excited about doing planning and engineering and, you know, fundamental stuff like gas interconnect or electrical interconnect or a business case that doesn't work. And it's like, and in some rare cases they go all the way to build something and then you have a white elephant.
Yeah.
That's no good for anybody, right? In the whole industry, right? So yeah, I'm glad you drew that out. That kind of front end stuff is really, really important. So,
yeah.
So what's next for you guys? That's a question I like to ask is what's, to the extent that you can share, of course, but you know, kind of what are you dreaming about? What are you excited about? What's next?
Well, we have lots of projects in various stages of development. We're hoping to start construction on our next facility.
Okay, cool.
In about 2 months or so.
Okay,
we're just working through some permitting and everything.
Excellent.
And then we have several other ones after that'll be
and they're all RNG at this point.
Correct.
Yeah,
they're all RNG projects.
On farm still.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. Right.
we've like that's our strength, right?
Yeah,
like the on farm side of it, we have so much you know, history and experience, and it's our comfort zone too.
Yeah.
You know, so that's huge for us to stay in that space. And then you know, at the site we have in Aylmer, we're looking at options for you know, how to move some of that gas where we have restrictions, right?
Yeah.
So that's an exciting opportunity too.
Yeah. Cool.
So
cool.
Yeah, there's always something.
There's always something. No, I get it. Yeah, good. Well, John, this has been great. Thank you for carving out your time. I know you're busy. I think great insight from a unique perspective as a solution provider and now a system owner, right? So that's, I think, been a very helpful perspective. So yeah, appreciate you sitting down with us and look forward to kind of watching what you guys do next. So,
thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to our live, not live stream, but, you know, live recording here at the Canadian Biogas Association, Value Biogas East, and stay tuned, more to come.